Going into leadership from engineering can be difficult. I've gone through it. In these videos, I'd like to share with you what I've learned. As your engineering career progresses, especially if you go into larger companies, you'll be increasingly asked to get involved with leadership. Even if you never become a people manager, you might end up doing things like leading large projects, mentoring junior engineers, and having interns report to you. These things might seem like organizational nonsense, chores and distractions that get in the way of the real work you're trying to do. You are a serious engineer after all. You hate going to meetings, you love to code, you just want to get things done. But actually, done right, leadership is a getting things done amplifier. The fact is, as your career progresses, your skills and knowledge become more and more valuable. But that value isn't being capitalized on if it all stays inside your head. Your time can have more impact if it's spent spreading your expertise around where it's needed, rather than just focusing on one person's work. The key is effective delegation. That is what makes leadership empowering. Delegation isn't just handing out work and telling people what to do. It's about sharing ownership. When you delegate effectively, people will be doing work that you want to be done and taking responsibility for it, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. That frees you up to do more elsewhere. So, how can you delegate effectively? A big company is a complicated system made up of many individuals interacting through various networks of communication. You can think of this organizational structure as being like the architecture of a very large software project. Teams are analogous to components. Company processes are like API interfaces, and organizational friction builds up just like technical debt. So things that make sense when designing software can also help when organizing people. In software, a component or module should do useful things concentrated in a single area of concern. It should abstract details and report important information. The same is true for teams and individuals. Under this analogy, delegation is like abstraction. The people you lead are like functions or modules, and your interactions with them are like the API. When you write a piece of software, it's a lot easier if there are libraries or frameworks that you can rely on to handle important aspects of the task. Likewise, when you lead a big project, it's better if you don't try to do everything yourself, or keep track of everything yourself. It's important to stay on top of what's going on in your project, but trying to track every detail leads to micromanagement. Micromanagement is like having an abstraction layer that's so thin it doesn't add any value. You wouldn't want to use a library where you have to keep track of and adjust all the underlying implementation details in order to get anything done, so you shouldn't organize your team that way. It's not just annoying for those on the receiving end, it's a big waste of time for you. The opposite problem is giving too much leeway, so things go off the rails without you knowing. You also wouldn't enjoy using an API that has no error reporting. So, how best to delegate? You have to take the work that needs to be done and split it into mostly self-contained tasks. If you have enough simultaneous projects, you can assign each to an individual. If you have a large project that you need to split up, you should do so carefully, taking into consideration the architecture of the project output. Conway's law, invented by Melvin Conway, says organizations which design systems are constrained to produce designs which are copies of the communication structures of these organizations. Which means that this analogy I've been describing is more than just a metaphor. It actually has a real impact on the designs a company can create. This idea is relevant on a smaller scale when thinking about how to divide up work for delegation. Imagine you have a project to write some software that is divided among several people. Each individual will be working on building one or two aspects of this project. Everything they do will seem connected to them, and so they will tend to create or extend one module or component whenever possible. Each individual has to match the needs and goals that they understand. Some things they will know from the start and will shape their work from the very beginning. Other requirements will be external, communicated by other people working on the project. These others will be working on their own modules and components, and these requirements will be expressed in terms of how these pieces should interact with each other. The easy solution will be to specify a communication protocol between the two separate components, rather than merging components or refactoring to rearrange the responsibilities. In that way, the components of the end result end up mirroring the individuals working on the project. So, it's a good idea to break up a large project into the components that it needs and assign each to one person. If the components have well thought out separations of responsibilities, that will make the project run more smoothly. Ideally, when delegated to, your engineers can work independently, handling details and making design decisions without you. However, that may take some time, as they may need to build confidence and earn your trust. When you delegate, make sure to set expectations and provide enough information for someone to handle the details at the level you want them to. You can always start small. Whatever the level of involvement you have, if others are doing work under your guidance, then it is absolutely critical that they understand your goals. You have to communicate not just what you want, but why you want it, and how that fits into the bigger picture of your team's roadmap. If they know what you want, they will know what you need to know. This allows them to handle the small details that don't matter, but bring important things to your attention. If everyone working on a project understands the bigger picture, then their design decisions will align more with each other, and will be made with the project's success in mind. Whereas someone who doesn't understand your goals is likely to unintentionally work against you as soon as you leave them alone. On the flip side, it's also a really good idea for you to understand those you delegate to. Of course, you don't want to ask someone to do something they can't do, so you do need to know about their skills and experience. But it's also very useful to understand their work interests and career ambitions. You can give people work that is a little challenging, and it will push them to grow and develop as engineers. If you push them in directions they already want to go, they will be highly motivated and will appreciate your leadership. This is a good idea even just in terms of getting results, but it's also good for people management, and generally is part of how you can grow a team and build trust and loyalty. But that's a topic for another time.